All right, so looking at your image size, this is an incredibly important screen, and it's a screen where you can do a lot of damage if you don't know what you're doing. So the first thing I always tell students to do is to uncheck resample. If resample is not checked, then no matter what you do, you cannot change how many pixels are in your image. And these are the precious jewels of your image, your pixels, that give you the resolution. So if I hit uncheck resample, it will show me those pixels through a combination of inches and pixels per inch. And if I change the width, so for instance, if I make the width 11 inches, it will automatically change the height to match the proportions, and it will automatically change the resolution to keep the same number of pixels. The goal is always to have a resolution that's high enough for the print size that you want. The absolute minimum resolution for printing in a way that looks good on a photo printer is 240 pixels per inch. That is the minimum. It is not ideal. The standard, industry standard for printing, if you were to send this to a professional print lab, they would ask for the image at 300 pixels per inch. My preferred resolution standard for printing is 350 pixels per inch because it allows us to enlarge it just a little bit and still have very high quality printing. And then the maximum that I want you to have is around 500 pixels per inch because anything beyond that is just obscene and it just takes up way more memory than you need. Okay, so right now I can play with these dimensions and see if I have the resolution I want. So if I want it to fit within an 11 by 14 mat, does this work?
No.
Not yet, right? Because if I try to put this image into 11 by 14, it's going to cut off an inch, a little bit more than an inch and a half from the image. So you have to look at what your limiting dimension is. So this is 11, but if it goes beyond 14 here, then I know that my limiting dimension is the height. So I'm going to move the height down to 14. And now I have an image that fits within 11 by 14. And it still has a resolution that's very strong. It's higher than 240, so it's higher than the minimum. It's higher than 300, which is the professional standard. It's higher than 350, which is my preferred lab standard. And it's below 500. And so I can keep it at this resolution and say, okay, because I want it to fit within an 11 by 14 mat. If I want it to fit within the larger cutout mat, that's 12 by 18, let me see. If I put 18 here, then I find that in that dimension, the limiting factor is the width. And if I want to preserve everything I see here, the width becomes the limiting factor. So I need to make that 12. And then I have an image that fits well within a 12 by 18. But at a resolution of 313. And that's a great resolution too. Anything over 300 is just great. Anything above 300 is gravy, right? And anything over 240 is printable. But I'll have serious reservations, is the word I'm looking for, about printing anything less than 240 pixels per inch, fewer than 240 pixels, because it will visually look worse. It will look blurry on the page. So that's how I would set it up to print within 12 by 18. But just because it's more standard, I'm going to set it to print within 11 by 14. Oops. There we go. Okay, so I'm messing with it a lot, but because I have resample unchecked, it's always keeping the same pixels. If I did those same things and I had resample checked, it would change the resolution each time. And that's where you get into trouble. That's when you can make it a lower resolution image than you want, or accidentally grow it way bigger than it's supposed to be, which also softens it. So always start by unchecking resample. So those are the proportions I'm going to use. I say OK. And now I want to see exactly how it's going to look in my mat. The mat I'm going to use is this 16 by 20 outside dimension, 11 by 14 inside dimension. I want to know exactly how it will look because I'm new to printing. So now I go to canvas size, and I'm going to put in the exact window opening dimension. So 11 by 14 from the center with white as the extension color because it's already flattened. I say okay, that's how it's going to look. And so I know now this is exactly 11 by 14 inches. Its resolution is higher than I need it to be, which is great. There's no reason for me to resample it and change it smaller, though I could if I was being really stingy about memory. This is what I want. So once it is flattened, it is finished, it is sized, then I save it with a new name, and I put print ready in front of the name, or often to abbreviate, I'll just put PR. And I save it as a TIFF because a TIFF additionally saves memory space. And I'm going to save it to the desktop. Command D is the shortcut for that in the Save As window. And I always want LZW compression. That is a lossless compression format. It means it saves space, but it doesn't lose any quality ever. Just takes a little bit longer to open and close. So now that one's done. I check on the desktop, it's right here. Now I can upload it to Dropbox. And I do that by going to my folder in Dropbox, clicking on the upload icon, choose my file. It's on the desktop. It's with my name and it has that PR in front of it. So there's lots of reasons to rename it with a convention. And then I open it. Also, the finished file is about 18 megabytes, which is pretty good for an oversized print. By flattening it and optimizing it for size, you're also not wasting the time it will take to upload it. If you tried to upload a multi-layered file, it's going to be something like 30 or 50 megabytes. It would take a whole lot longer to upload. Then you click done, and then there it is. It's in there waiting for me. So this file now will be on the print computer waiting for me. There it is. All right. So that's how we make it print ready. Let me do one that goes into the smaller mat size. One that goes into the regular size paper into an 8 by 10 opening. And a good example for that might be the texture assignment. So I go to my documents, I open up my photo folder, I open up my assignments, I go to my texture assignment, I'm looking for my finished PSD. There is no TIFF here. This is my most high resolution finished assignment. Open it up in Photoshop. First thing I do, I'll view it at 100% and see if the quality looks good. And it looks good. Nice and strong. Okay. Now I'm going to flatten it, layer flatten. Now I go to the image size. And I want to make sure it fits within an 8 by 10 opening. And the way we saved them, they were 9 by 12 by 350. So I uncheck resample, and I put in the width as 10. And sure enough, I get 7.5 by 10 at a resolution of 420, which is not so large that we need to shrink it for memory. So we just leave that. We say, okay. If I want to see exactly how that will look within an 8 by 10 space, I say image, canvas size. I make it exactly 8 by 10 with an extension color of white. And that's what it would look like in my mat. Now, if I think that looks like too much white space, what can I do? If I don't want so much white space, I can go to canvas size and I can also trim it. So maybe I can use my guides here, and I want to trim 1/2 inch off from these sides. Right? So what do? I can go to image canvas size. Don't use the crop tool because the crop tool is very inexact when you're trying to do this kind of thing. And in the canvas size, I can trim it now to a width of 9 inches and a height of 7 inches. And that will trim half an inch from all sides. And when you trim with your canvas size, it will give you this warning. Do you really want to lose pixels? And in this case, I do. I want to trim the white. Now I go back to image size, and I see that's 9 by 7 by 420 pixels per inch. I have resample unchecked. I want to make that width now 10. And now it's 10 by 7.78, which is almost the same as 8 by 10, and is still a very strong resolution. So I'm going to go with that, and I'm going to say OK, because I like the way that looks in a matte. And if I want to see exactly how it will look in the matte, I go to canvas size, and I make it exactly 8 by 10. And then I can turn off my guides. And if I like that better than this in the matte, and I do, then this is the way I'm going to make it print ready. So you have control not just of your image size, but of the format size around your image. Whatever is showing within the black matte. Pretend that this empty space, that's your matte. That's your finished piece. Okay, so I'm going to save that. It's been flattened and sized as my print ready assignment 2. And I'm going to save it not as a Photoshop file, but as a TIFF to the desktop with LZW turned on. It's right here. Now I'm going to upload that to the Dropbox. And now my third project. I've got a black and white. I've got my cubist. Maybe I'm really excited about my last project that I've done before the midterm. My 3 layers of depth. This is another one where it might be good to print large. So I would find my finished TIFF in this case. Or one that's kind of trickier dimension-wise is your finished panoramic. So let me open that one up. So I have a lot of files here. I know I don't want my JPEGs, even if they say final. What I want is my finished TIFF file. So I'm going to open that with Photoshop. First thing I do, make sure it looks good at 100%. View 100%. Looks okay. Maybe it's a little bit too dark. When you print, your darks are going to look a little darker because we're printing with ink instead of seeing it with light. So you want to be careful of images looking too dark. And so at 100%, I can start to make little modifications. In fact, maybe I want to do a slight adjustment layer. So I go to Layer, New Adjustment Layer, Levels, and I'm just going to limit the darks a little bit and brighten the midtones just a bit. And that's going to go over everything. And do I like that? Yes, I like that a lot better. I'll get a much better print that way. So if I view it at 100%, that helps me see a lot more detail. But maybe it's a little bit too strong, so let me push it down, find a happy medium. It still has the interesting color shifts. But it's going to print much better. Okay, so if it looks good at 100%, now I can flatten the image. If it doesn't look good at 100%, it will not print well. Right? Now I can flatten the image, and now I go to image size. And this is very long, not very tall at 300 pixels per inch. So the first thing I